Parenting is an adventure, and like any other adventure, you've got to work hard and be prepared.
The quest is on.
We're in search for all things parenting. We hear from the kids, from the professionals, and from you, real parents on real issues. It's all happening right here, right now on Care.
Care, the adventures of parenting.
Hi, welcome to Care. Today it is all about divorce, family life. Of course, the better our family life is, the better society that we have. So we brought in the experts, Family Life TT. We've had them here before, but they are talking a little bit, not blended family, but just family in general, marriages, the real effects of divorce. That's what we're gonna talk about today. I'm gonna zip it and introduce one time Joelle and Russell. Joelle and Russell have an amazing story. I know they're going to share that story because it's a testimony that regardless of where we think we are now, marriages can heal, even what some people think are the worst of marriages. You guys have a weekend to remember coming up. That's been going on forever.
Yes,
I hope to.
1999.
Since 1999. Wow, I know it was forever, but I didn't realize it was that much.
Really forever.
Right. So tell us about family life for those of our audience who didn't catch you before.
Right.
What's family life all about?
So we're a non-profit, non-governmental organization. We're present in over 100 countries worldwide. We're a subsidiary of Crew International. So our mandate is to change the world one home at a time.
Nice.
And we do that by strengthening families,
Awesome.
starting with marriage.
And you guys got involved with Family Life TT. How?
Well, we had a failed marriage.
So we're going to go right into the story?
Yes.
Let's go right into the story.
Yes, we never intended, this was nowhere on our radar to be family life educators for any stretch of the imagination. I am a designer and Joel is a marketing expert. 23 years ago, we got married and started the business at the same time. Two professionals, two well-intentioned professionals came up from good backgrounds, well brought up. We did marriage counseling, we did everything. We were in church, and we thought that
Proper recipe.
yeah, that was all we needed. And we had good support systems. But somewhere along the line, although I had great intentions, I put everything in, being the typical man, put everything into the provider aspect of my responsibility, put everything into the business. And Joelle, being a very understanding wife, didn't make any fuss at all. But eventually what happened is we started to drift.
You say eventually. Can you give me some time frames? Like year, 2 year, 3 year, 5?
Between 1 and 5. But from the beginning, I tell people I don't know what honeymoon bliss is. We began to have conflict very early because we realized how different we were. So, for example, Monday could fall on a Friday. It doesn't matter. I don't plan. Russell is very organized. He plans. So a lot of our conflict centered around that initially because he would want to plan out everything. And I'll be like, well, okay, what are you doing today? What is the plan? Whatever happens, I plan. What are you talking about, plan? So that was, a real rocky
I can see
start.
that driving you crazy.
Yes.
Interestingly, when you ask couples, how do you rate your marriage relationship? We don't have the proper statistics, but usually men might even say a 9 or a 10 or 8. And when you ask the ladies, they say a 3, maybe a 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because there's a
All the
book
time.
actually called Men Are Clueless. we are clueless when it comes to emotional stuff. So I thought everything was okay, but Joelle had a different perspective. Although she didn't fuss,
You
I
couldn't
think,
read between the
yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're into somewhere eventually being year 1 and 5. So it's
Yes.
not eventually late in, it's eventually
No,
early in.
Actually, the statistics show that the highest incidences of divorce is in the first 5 years of marriage and then in the latter half of marriage. So like after 25, 30, sometimes 35 years of marriage, you realize that you don't have a relationship because you did not take the time to cultivate the relationship. And oftentimes the children are the glue that holds the family together. You just stick it out for the sake of the children, and then by the time the children leave, you realize there's no more glue. I don't know this person that I've been married to for how long. I'm now married to a stranger. And so you end up divorcing later on in life as well.
Okay. So back to Russell.
Yeah.
Okay, so long story short, things got rough with my business, well, our business. And, you know, every time I would come home, we used to have arguments. It started with small arguments, and the same argument over and over, and then more arguments, and eventually, you know, we couldn't communicate. So the business demanded more of my time. So it was a safe place to be at work rather than at home. And that's when the drama started because, you know, our needs weren't being met. And then, you know, usually when people in that state, something comes along. I didn't go looking for it, but, you know, I got really close to someone in terms of talking, you know, and someone of opposite sex. So we started talking. I started sharing about my relationship. Well, everybody knows how it goes. And then, you know, so it moved what we call from a career affair to an emotional affair. And then it just went downhill. It slipped into, I use the word slipped, because it slipped into a love affair.
Can I ask a question in terms of who you were prior to marriage? Because, you know, some people would say, well, you could have expected that because that's who he was outside of marriage. You know, he was not a monogamous person.
Right.
Would you say that this took you by surprise? You know, prior to marriage, were you that kind of one man, one woman type guy?
I was a saint.
Really? So you were
No,
a saint.
we actually said to each other before we got married, we said we would never do this. I mean, I didn't see it in my home, and, you know, I was committed to this. I mean,
So this was really, really out of the blue, like left field something.
yeah.
You could not predict because this is a good guy.
Yep. And I saw it in my home. And I said to him, this is one thing. If this happens, that's the end of it. I'm not accepting it. I saw my mother accept it, and I'm not going to be accepting it. And that would be the end of the relationship.
Both of us said the same.
Wowzers.
If you ask most
3
people,
years
they would
later.
say, you know, if there's infidelity, everybody says they're going to put a full stop there. But the story,
But you guys didn't.
the story
No,
went
we
on.
The story went on.
Yeah.
So let's hear the story, how it went on.
Well, somehow my mother saw some tension in the relationship, and she, in her nice little way, gave me a birthday card with a gift voucher on the inside, saying it would make me very happy if you attend this conference.
At this point, you're still unaware of what's going on.
Yeah, I was not aware yet.
You were
no.
not aware yet. Okay.
So it was a weekend to remember, a family life, weekend to
Right.
remember marriage conference. At the time, we discussed counseling, and the typical male response is, well, why do we need counseling? We know what the issues are. Why do we need a third party to tell us what we already know? So, so since it came from my dear mother, I could not refuse. It was already paid for, so I agreed to go. And that was the beginning of the transformation, where the scales fell off of our eyes, and we saw, you know, practical truths, practical skills, practical tools that we started to use to correct some of the things we were doing. And, you know, when things were crazy, when we couldn't communicate, some of these tools helped us to bring things back down to a level playing field where we could start talking. And eventually, you know, my conscience and,
Wowzers.
you know, started to speak to me, and a number of other things. I mean, we don't have time to go through all of it, but it was a really remarkable experience where I actually, one day I was crying out to God, saying, you know, both my business and my marriage is falling apart. My two worlds are falling apart. I know this relationship that I'm in is not the right thing to do. I even started to question, maybe I made the wrong choice. I married the wrong woman, because she was also of the same faith a Christian girl, and at the time, the 20% that I didn't have with my wife, this
Sounds
package
like that 100%.
had the 20% and it felt like 100%. So I really felt that I made the wrong mistake. The mistake marrying the wrong person. So I came to the point where I realized, listen, I can't continue. And as I said, I was praying to God. And I told God I did everything that I could do. And I heard a voice say, no, you didn't.
Right.
So I immediately went downstairs, got on my knees, and confessed.
Wow.
It was a gamble for me because I thought, well, she's gonna
Once you confess, that's it.
she's gonna leave. But I felt that I couldn't continue the other life anyway, so it was a gamble, and I did it. And you could take
How
it
did
from
you
there.
feel? Oh my goodness.
Well, there were a lot of emotions at the time. Anger. I mean, I knew the person very well. So it was a whole lot of thinking, trying to figure out when, why, how, you know. But, I mean, I have to say as well, I am not the innocent person in all of this either, because I did not know how to communicate well. I didn't know how to communicate effectively. So he got a lot of silent treatment, cold shoulder. And the thing what we learned at the conference after was that women and men are different. So that how we process things very different to how men process things. And so we were on a crazy cycle that we could not come off of. And so my responses to him were very disrespectful. And so because of my disrespect to him, he was reacting to me in an unloving way. And so you're on this cycle, he's reacting in an unloving way, and I'm reacting more disrespectful, and you're spiraling downward. Whereas we understood now the tools to come off of that cycle. And so I felt that I was in a better place to be able to now do things well. But in the beginning, I would give him a lot of silent treatment, the cold shoulder, as I said. And the thing with women is because we are holistic and we are very emotional, oftentimes, and when we talk to couples, they share this. It's always a pattern. The first thing to go will be intimacy. For a man, intimacy is very important. It's not wrong. It's not that they are, maniacs. It's just that this is how they are wired. But for a woman, because the relationship is broken, that part of you can't give yourself to your husband. And so you end up in this cycle of he's feeling disrespected by my withdrawal from him as well. So all of this is what leads. So instead of understanding how to deal with it, we both just escaped into doing different things and just not focusing on coming back together and understanding how to resolve the conflict in a civilized way. But thank God the conference allowed us to do that, and we were able to get the tools to be able to communicate properly, to be able to resolve conflict. And then it all came about with forgiveness. Forgiveness, I realized that I have to take responsibility for the relationship being to whatever level it was at. If you go to try to decide who is more responsible, I could say, well, he's 80% responsible and I'm 20, and he will say that I'm 90% responsible and he's 10. So the fact is we both were doing things in the wrong way and we needed to do things differently. So take ownership and ask for forgiveness and seek and grant each other that forgiveness that is needed. And we were able to do that because I know that I myself am in need of forgiveness, and that is what Christ did for me. By dying on the cross, he forgave me for my sins, and so I was able to forgive and release. And knowing that we've made a covenant promise to each other for better or for worse. And we took those covenant vows very seriously.
I'm getting goosebumps because, of course, 23 years later, you're now taking your story and really impacting couples. Every time I go on all these different sites and it's all about leave, and that's all I see, leave. And yes, okay, there's a real legit reason, but can we work this out? Even if it means a temporary separation in cases of abuse or whatever. Yeah. But it can be worked out. Everyone can heal and everything can work out. So God obviously knew what he was doing.
Yes,
that
he did.
Terrible period is now saving so many families. We're gonna go on a break. When we come back, it is more Russell and Joelle. I hope you guys are enjoying it already. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Care. welcome back to Care. Today it is all about family life. TT, we're about to get into divorce. Before we went on the break, Joelle and Russell had given us a phenomenal story, their own story. Thank you for putting that out there. It cannot be easy to be telling this over and over. I have no idea how you guys get to really heal by bringing this thing up all the time. How in the world do you do that?
Because we're healed.
Because you're healed, so
We're healed, so it doesn't matter. And it's for a better good. We get joy, and it's our passion to help others. And we know by telling our story that others will benefit. So they will hear and can identify, and they will be able to realize that there's hope. And that's one of our things. Our tagline is there's hope where there's help.
Your story makes the forgiveness part seem kind of easy.
Easy, yes.
Yes, it does.
So let's go into this forgiveness. What did that period look like? Was it in like a week? A year later, you still kind of crying on the side like, oh my goodness, did this really happen? Was it a conscious decision? What are some of the practical tools if something like this has happened for a wife or a husband to really use to forgive?
Well, let me first say that as a man, we think differently, right? So when we came together and we agreed that we were going to move on from this, typical man would say, okay, let's drop it and move on.
And that's it. And in your mind, it was done.
Yeah.
It's done.
Put that in a compartment, and it's done.
Put that away. But for women, it's a little different. So I had to learn how to earn back her trust, because trust was broken. And you don't just switch trust on and on like how men switch on and off. So I had to creatively find ways. I had to seek. It's like courting all over again. I had to find ways to win her over again and convince her that those things would not happen again. So that took some doing. It took me some time to realize that I needed to do that first of all. Thank God we had help. Okay, support is necessary at times like this. And but then I had to wait for her to heal as well. So
I guess you can't be impatient as well.
Yes.
Because, as you say, men kind of go, okay, it's done.
Yeah,
You've
it's
said
done.
you've forgiven me.
Yeah.
Could you drop it and move on?
Move on.
Yes. So, and one of the things that we decided to do, and as you see, you did say it was a decision. We made the decision and we were going to wipe the slate clean. So anything that happened in the past, that was the past. We started from ground zero, and we were going to build with the new tools that we had. So just wiping that slate clean, we not that we didn't think about it, but we didn't hold it against each other. We committed to not bringing things up. Yes, we slipped from time to time, and then we had to remind each other, listen, that was in the past. We are starting with new information now, and we're doing things differently now. So that was one thing. And then he really did go out of the way to make me feel that I could have trusted him again. And a support system is very, very good. What we did, we went to every single thing that family life had after that. So we didn't just go to the conference, got the tools, and that was the end of that. We went back to, we had arguments, yes. We still, didn't get along all the time, but we kept growing. So each conference that they had, we went back the following year. There was a level 2, and that took us a little deeper. Then we joined something called a home builders group, where a few couples get together and they talk about a different topic. And we joined that. So we had those friends. We had people we could have asked questions. We could have said, dealing with this, what do you think about this? Here's things from a different perspective. See that many couples are going through the same thing that we are going through. And that really helped to continue to build us. And up to now, we still do a lot of things that will help to build our relationship.
I think the constant
Yes.
support and the network, the right network, is very important. I have to go on a break because we have something called finance and the family, because all of this takes money, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And we're gonna have to have money if we want to be kind of happy, no matter all the counsel in the world. If we have none,
It's one of the top
it
reasons for
makes
divorce.
it. Well, you see?
Finance, yep.
So finance and the family is up next.
Your family's bank account will grow as fast as you grow. What do we mean by that? Simple. The more you develop your financial brain, the sharper your money management skills will be. What's the right amount of insurance? How much cash reserves do we need? How can I invest in stocks? What does the world of real estate have to offer? Are there any grants that can be accessed? What are the tricks to make the expenses seem smaller? Many majorly successful people we admire have all hacked their education. They learned what they needed to be successful for the next stage they planned to be in.
Hi, welcome back to Care. Today it is all about family life, TT, and the effects of divorce. We're going to go into, because when we were going on to finance and family, you actually brought up one of the top reasons for divorce, finances. Let's talk about that a little bit, the reasons for divorce.
Well, there's several. I mean, right now, there's the biblical reasons, and then there are the reasons that we just decide we're going to bring into
Right. What are some of the
differences?
reasons that are coming up more and more now?
Right. So right now, the major number one is irreconcilable differences.
What in the world does that mean?
What does it mean? I don't know what it means. It's not even a thing. What is irreconcilable differences? Everything is reconcilable if you put the effort and you put the time into reconciling it. You can. But it's just, to me, people choose not to.
Right.
Then there's, I don't love, either the man or the woman saying, I don't love the person anymore. I don't love my spouse. And then finance. You can't figure out, how to agree with how finances are spent. And that added pressure of financial difficulty, especially in these economic times. People have to know how to navigate through financial difficulty, because it adds a real pressure to relationships. So there's that. There's also death of a child is one of the major causes. You're more likely to divorce having had a death of a child. Also, issues surrounding children. That's also a very big one, where you can't agree on how to raise the children, or just a child goes astray and you blame the other one, that kind of thing. So issues surrounding children is a general category.
What are some of the things, what are some of the tools that couples can learn coming to your seminar?
Right.
Okay, so for instance, Joel raised a number of items, and the list could go on and on. But one of the things that we do teach is how to resolve conflict. Because basically everything is about conflict. Conflict with money, conflict with parenting, conflict with who knows what. So the tool that is given there that can address all of those items is how to resolve conflict. And everybody comes in with a different view on how they resolve conflict. But at the conference, that's one of the big sessions. Well, first of all, we go into understanding the threats of marriage, okay? And then we go into communication, and one aspect of communication is how to resolve the conflict when it occurs. And it's very useful. I mean, those are things we don't learn in school. Those are things that we don't go to university. I mean, you want to be a doctor, you go to school, you do the courses. A plumber has to do but you get married and you don't, you do 6 weeks of counseling.
Yeah,
or,
and there are no
It's
mandatory
so much.
courses.
Sometimes it's just one week, one session.
And it's amazing the little nuggets that you get, the little eye openers, the little adjusting that we do in our mindsets, that makes a whole difference. And some people say they can't do this or they can't do that, but at the conference we actually show you how you can do it, and with practice.
Yeah, it's very practical. It's very fun. So I want people to understand that this conference is fun. Most people, when they come, the feedback that we get, because we have a feedback form for people to say how they felt about the conference, and they say it was too short. So some people, at the beginning, everybody's saying 2 days. I can't spend 2 days to come to a conference. When are you going to tell me so? And then at the end of it, you're saying, gosh, this should have been longer. So it's really fun. Some of the other things that we do, we break the men and the women up separately so that you have an opportunity to discuss women's unique issues and men's unique issues with male and female facilitators. And so we have a discussion session after that So some of the things that are brought out in the male session and some of the things that are brought out in female session, we're able to now come together and discuss it. Communication is a big one, but there's also an aspect of communication is sexual intimacy, which is always a real attractive session because it's a lot of fun, you have a lot of laughter. So, and then we talk about leaving a godly legacy. We do touch on parenting a little bit within the women's and the men's section, but it's a smaller part because once you get the marriage right, the parenting, you could get the tools to really parent well as well. But the key thing is a solid foundation to have that secure family.
I like
family
that
life.
you say, because I think some people go the opposite.
Correct,
We focus
yes.
so much on parenting
Yes.
that we forget our marriage.
Yes.
Gonna go again to Care Tech Tip. This one is all about technology. We helped with finance before, now we're gonna help you to use technology in a slightly more responsible manner. Don't go anywhere, Care Tech Tip is next. Know the apps your kids access. You don't have to invade your children's privacy in order to help keep them safe online. Sit down with your children periodically and take a look at every single app on their devices. Ask your child to show you how the app works. Research the ones that you aren't familiar with. Test each app by downloading them on your own device and signing up for an account. Remember, apps that don't require a phone number can be signed up for anonymously. Roblox, Yellow, and Periscope are just a few apps that pedophiles have access to harm children. Other concerns include apps that don't function the way you'd expect. For example, there's an app called Calculator. It has a hidden photo app on iOS. We're long past the days when our only concerns as parents in the digital age involved what our kids might be exposed to on the internet. Of course, we're worried our children are going to see things online that they aren't mature enough to understand. We should also be worried that someone who wishes our family harm might know where our kids are going to be at any given time. An educated parent is a prepared one. Talk to your children about information security and use these best practices to keep your family safe.
I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. My first issues started happening when I was around 10 in that transition between primary school and secondary school. So major depressive disorder comes with a great loss of energy. Things that you wanted to do before feel much more out of reach and much harder. And it's kind of like dragging a weight, trying to move through your life. It feels like all your insides have just become more heavy. And the things that you love to do suddenly just don't feel the same at all. They just feel like twice, 3 times, 4, 10 times as hard as it used to be. Even things that you enjoyed and loved, it would become a task. Even though you enjoyed yourself, it would become like walking through concrete. The first issues I had were my mood started to swing a lot. I would be happy sometimes, and then I'd fall into this deep sadness for so long. And it would take me so long to get out of, days, weeks. And sometimes I'd be so angry, uncharacteristically angry, that I'd lash out at anyone near me. It still happens. You know, I'm not generally an angry person at all. And it's like it was another different person coming out of me. And telling me, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, this takes too much energy, you can't do this. Even if they are things that, even if they were like my hopes and dreams, they would become, it would just feel like they are running away from you as you're running towards it. And there's this hopelessness that comes in your mind. It just kind of sucks away everything in you. You look sadder, you feel sadder, you sound sadder, people can often see it on your face, you know, whether you tell them or not. And you learn how to hide that, because it gets tiring. Not only the depression itself, but when people keep asking you, are you okay? And you don't have an answer for them, because you're not, and you can't say that you're not.
Why can't you say you're not okay?
Because people expect you to be better than you are. There's the usual answer to how are you is good. And when people hear something different than that, it upsets them and it's uncomfortable. And then they don't know what to do. So when you really want to answer, no, I'm not good, you can't, because no one wants to hear that. It becomes awkward. People start to move away from you. Now, the generalized anxiety disorder comes with rapid thoughts and worries and the chest pains come out of the nervousness. It's like a constant running activity inside your brain that you can't stop. And you worry about everything around you, about what everyone sees you as, what complete strangers who have nothing to do with your life you worry about. And you constantly run a simulation of what's happening around you, what could happen, what will happen, what you need to do to get around it. It's exhausting. I do take medication to try to help calm my mind and help it just take a step, just one step down from running everywhere all the time to at least a bit of a lower level of activity. And I take something to help me sleep at night, and that's about it. I used to be on a lot more medication, but it was so prohibitively expensive that it was not sustainable, and I couldn't live my life based on this medication. So I also turned to therapy, and I learned strategies of how to keep myself calm, how to keep myself present in any moment, how to recognize when my mind is telling me things that aren't real, you know, that I learned how to dig deep and get myself to function. I also learned how to forgive myself a lot, because it's often a matter, at least for me, of me understanding that these things are not logical. These things aren't actually getting in my way. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And I've learned to differentiate between them. And I've learned to keep myself focused on where I need to go and what I want to do. And it has helped a lot. So, people around me, like my family, have been very understanding. And I'm lucky that I had a family that could have taken care of me as much as they have, because they love me dearly and they just don't want to see me in this pain. And they've tried everything they know how to help me. It's not always easy for them to do it, but they try their best. And I'm lucky in that way. A lot of people aren't. And they have people around them that can't understand or refuse to understand. And in that lack of understanding, more damage can be done than just the person who is suffering from the depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder or whatever mental illness that they have. Now, this is not to say to people, step back and stay away. It's more about taking your time to understand what's happening. It's not easy to do. It takes time, but in that understanding comes a lot of relief. When you understand what's happening, you can take better steps towards working it out. You can understand better as to what things are happening in this person's life. What is it that's provoking these things inside them? And what is going on inside them that makes things on the outside more difficult and makes it worse than it actually is? So it goes both ways. And we often forget to have a lot of compassion. You know what? No, it's more like we often forget to have compassion for people that are in this place. That when they are suffering and they're trying to get through it, it can be difficult on the people around them. And the people around them can respond to this by shutting down and shutting off, because they don't understand what's happening. They feel attacked. And so they go towards protecting themselves, which is understandable, because these things are difficult. But when it happens to people that are close to us and that we love, when someone is suffering and they're asking for your help and you've pulled away from them, that could be even worse than what is going on inside them. Only after coming back home, I had actually heard that another schoolmate of mine had actually committed suicide. It was someone that I would see all the time walking down the halls, and we weren't close friends, but he was always very happy. He was very positive. You would never think this person was having any issues at all. And it hit me so hard that I couldn't believe that I was a few doors away from someone who's going through the same thing that I was, and I never spoke to them about it. Someone that was probably suffering just as much as I did. If you are feeling suicidal or like you want to hurt yourself, that doesn't mean it has to happen. There's still so much that you can live for. There is more that you can be, and you will be better. If you want to be better, you have to make it so. And you have to try everything you can. You go to therapy, you speak to people. Often a conversation is enough to help someone in that state. Just listen to them, or if you're the one suffering, just speak your mind and say what's happening with you. And if someone comes to you asking for that support, it takes very little to do so. Just a listening ear is so many times all that's needed.
Closing comments. We have about 3 minutes. Why do couples need to work on their marriage? What is the effect of divorce? It's very normalized now. Tell us, why is it shouldn't to be normal?
Well, first, I'd like to say that there's no friendly or civil divorce. They all end up like it's a battlefield. It's a war, and the warriors are the husband and the wife. The battlefield is the home, and the spoils are the children and everything else you own. So everything else you own is up for grabs in a divorce. It affects you physically, it affects you spiritually, and it affects you emotionally. Miles Monroe said that the divorce is worse than death. With death, there's closure. With divorce, you have to keep going, especially if there are children involved, you have to keep seeing the person. So it's like opening old wounds over and over again. So because of that, it has an effect on you emotionally. So when you talk to a lot of divorcees, they're going through depression. We know quite a few right now. They have all kinds of things that are manifested physically because of the emotional stress. There's also the effect on the children that we can't ignore. The children at different stages, a preschooler, you will see it acted out by them trying to get the parents to get back together. With a preteen, it may affect their self-esteem. With a teenager, well, that's the worst time. It's the hardest time for them. They act out in all kinds of different ways. It might go to substance abuse. The statistics are there to show. We need to get families together because of our society. Everybody's talking about the crime rate right now, and it's directly, we used to do some work with this in Michael Home for Boys, and every single child that was in there, they came from a broken home. So if we want our nation to be strong, if we want to change the crime rate, we need to get our families together. Our nation needs it, our communities need it, our children need it.
Joel, Russell.
I am so glad that I didn't get a divorce. I have a wonderful family now, and I could have missed that and end up being another statistic. And that's why now we are advocates for developing strong and healthy marriages. You know, the more I look at it, is the more that I get passionate about it. But there is a way. The things that the difficulties that come at us, is it can either make you or break you. That same difficulty can make you stronger, and it can make you destroy your marriage. And it's our choice. It really comes down to our choice. And with a helping hand, with somebody to walk alongside with you, it becomes more possible to make you rather than break you. So I'm saying, I'm just hoping that people listening will choose to make this something that could make them stronger rather than weaker. Because it doesn't just affect you. It's not about you. Your marriage is really not about you. It affects your children, and it affects generations, it affects nations. So, you know, we all have legacies that we want to leave, and take it from us. I mean, you could look around at people that you know that are divorced. It's not a pretty picture, and you know, if we would all work a little harder at our relationships, we'd be amazed at what could happen, because that's our story. Our relationship now is so much more beautiful than it was before. You know?
I love that you say your marriage isn't yours. And if we put it in the perspective of a country and of a nation, then we owe the world. And I know people don't like to think that, but we do owe it to society to work on it.
Yes.
Thank you guys for providing the tools. Weekend to remember. Do you want to just give very, very quickly some information on that?
Yes, it's June 15th and 16th. So the 15th is the Eid holiday. So it's a Friday and a Saturday. It's at Cascadia Hotel. You can call 478-4645 or 398-1955, and you can get further details to register. You can go on our website, which is familylifett.org.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and thank you once again for sharing your story.
Thanks.
It's been lovely. Thank you for spending your Sunday evening with us, and join us next week for another episode of Care.